Alright, so my name is Pedro and I'm going to talk on behalf of my co-author Patrik Jonell and also Patrik Baudisch, my advisor at HBI, about this idea of Affordance++, which is the idea of allowing objects to communicate dynamic use. And I want to show you directly what I'm talking about. Oh, and I need the audio. Just a second. This thing.
I do it, and it's like I have to let it fall anyway.
We need to let things go.
So I approach the object, I grab it, once I just squeeze.
Alright, so today we're going to talk about affordance. And it's great that we're a lot in this room because I think this is a crucial topic in HCI, right? This is one of the kind of foundations of our community. And there's a lot of theory around this, right? Gibson to Don Norman and so forth. But to boil it down very simply, I think affordance can be defined as how well-designed objects actually communicate their use. And in this talk, we're going to take a little bit of a different perspective and explore that. So I'm going to motivate this with a fairly simple example. I'm going to use a concrete example from real world, which is a spray can. Now, if you look at the spray can, it has a bunch of great elements to it. I really like that the cylindrical shape, just like in this presentation clicker here, suggests grasping, right? The radius of this thing and the radius of my grasping is not that different. And on the second, like on the top there, the cultural reference of a button for all of us here in the room kind of suggests that there's some kind of action that's going to happen. Hopefully the ink is going to be released once I press it. But now the trick is, well, nothing except in the label says that, wait, you got to shake before you use it. Right? That's the designer that put there in the spray can. So me and Patrik started wondering, well, why did the bottle not really afford that? Right? Why did the bottle not inform me of that? And the reason because of that is that the underlying limitation of these type of physical objects is that they cannot depict time. And thus the spray can is inanimate. Its shape is inanimate. Its traditional affordance, so to speak, is inanimate. But things like motion, shaking, or the order of things, when to shake, are things that are phenomena in time. They happen during time. So to tackle this, we propose what we call Affordance++. And I want to show you at work Affordance++ in action with footage from our user study. So what you'll see are participants when we asked them to paint this.
Ah.
Okay, that was cool. I totally would have forgot to shake it.
I need to shake it.
Oh, right, that's playing.
Ah.
Sorry for that. All right, you've seen that one. All right, so the key concept behind Affordance++ is allowing objects to communicate dynamic cues, and we're going to talk about three things mainly: motion, multi-step processes, and behaviors that change over time. And we do so by controlling user behavior. Now, of course, there's many ways to conceptually implement what we're talking about here, but we particularly chose one, which is to actuate the user's muscles using electrical stimulation. But the core of Affordance++ is that you could do this with sensors and actuators onto the user. We particularly chose actuators that are electrodes because they allow for a really compact wearable form factor. All right, so let's put things a little bit into perspective. Here's, just for a moment, I'm going to call this traditional affordance. It is limited, as we saw in depicting time, and here nothing really suggests shaking. On the other hand, with Affordance++, well, it suggests shaking because the can tells you to shake. Now, what I find really interesting about this is that in traditional affordance, the understanding of the shaking comes in the following form factor. You go and search for this label, you read the label, you understand the label, and then you mimic what you see in the pictogram onto your muscles. You transfer that, you kind of pass it onto your muscles. Now, the key in Affordance++ is that that just happens, right? The instruction of the motion of the shaking happens and is perceived through your proprioceptive system at the same time. The next time you might just shake it for yourself because you kind of understood it. So now this spray can, the one enhanced with Affordance++, affords new things. It affords what to do, the shaking motion, which we just saw in the video. It affords the order of the steps. You first grab, then you shake, then you spray. It's not a mix of that. And it could also depict hidden state. You don't really know if the can is empty, so maybe it just kind of throws it away by itself once it's empty. So kind of collapsing these things together, the categories in which Affordance++ is for us very interesting is motion, orders things, and depicting the hidden state. And I'm going to demonstrate that again with footage from the participants of the user study and 6 examples. And this will be a little bit of a puzzle thing. As I show you an example, try to figure out how things work. And we already know the answer for the first, which was the spray can. It shakes. So look at this awkward object right here. It's not the most conventional light, and we ask participants to turn on the light. Now this happens to be a real light made by a designer.
I shouldn't touch it over here. I should touch it here. So apparently here is kind of, I need to flip it over.
So this kind of moment we got a lot when interacting with Affordance++, because this object is unfamiliar, right? This is the first time these people have seen this object. Right, and that was the category of motion, but now we go on to things that need to be performed in particular steps, A and then B and then C. And this is the first one. Another bit of a puzzle for you. We ask participants to use this object here and collect all the screws in that container.
I guess I should use this. Okay. Okay.
The grasp movement again.
I felt that it was like telling me to do this, to don't squeeze when I'm above this. But there was like feedback when I was above this, and I had to squeeze it.
So this participant got it really right. What happened here is that the main misconception you might have felt for this kind of trap is that this object has a magnet inside. So it works the other way around, right? When the magnet, this is the diagram of the pattern of the object. When the magnet is lower, so you don't push the handle, then you collect the screws. But our cultural reference tells us that, triggering the action, and the action was to collect the things, is usually triggered by pushing something. So this works the other way around, right? So pushing the handle releases the screws because the magnet goes a little bit away. So here, a little bit also like depicting the hidden state of the object, but particularly it tells you when to do it and when not to do it. The first participant was an interesting case because he was going to go for the handle to collect the object, but Affordance++ released his hand telling this is not the right step to do it right now, and told him what to do later when he was hovering the container. So the order of the steps is being depicted. Another one takes the order of steps of multi-step processes a bit further as this kind of weird avocado slicer. This is a great kitchen tool you can buy, and we ask participants to prepare the avocado in thin slices. And you might want to take a moment to think how you would do it actually.
Okay, and this is the thing.
Approached it, and it kind of gave me this motion, and then I just applied it to the avocado.
You kind of saw it, right? The tool itself has this sort of 3 different functionalities, and it was refusing to be used at certain steps and suggesting turn around the hand and use the other step because this is not right now what you should do. Obviously, all the users understood pretty well that a knife is like the first step to slice, but then to remove the pit with this was pretty hard to understand, and the tool was kind of like hinting that by rotating. As well, it was rotating and scooping, showing you the motion that actually tells you how to scoop and slice at the same time. It's a very handy tool, by the way. So now we go on to another type of puzzles, which is we don't know what's actually happening with this particular state of the object. And here, you might think, well, this is a cup. I hope you can see that this is a cup, and this is going to be very obvious. But if the state of the cup is hidden, there might be things in which our cultural reference gets tricky, and actually 11 out of the 12 users directly went for the body of the cup. And now let's see that that's not always the correct affordance.
Okay, I feel like it doesn't want me to touch the water. Not at all. Maybe I should need to grab the handle. Yeah, I think I need to grab the handle.
so hot?
It's not cool to grab the thing, but the handle is okay, no matter how I grab.
But it allowed me to grab it on the much colder handle.
So this is a great example of this quote here, because this was what happening. What was happening is that I poured contents onto the cup, I removed the vapor, and they were hot. So you can't visually observe that the contents are hot, right? Hidden state of an object. But now, you just want to grab it by the body. Now this time, the cup does not want to afford being handled like a glass. It wants to be handled by the ear like a cup. Temperature drops, things get dynamic, and the affordance will be changed again. Alright, so one more puzzle, last one of the hidden state. Again, you think this might be very easy. Doors open in kind of a particular way, and we just ask them, open this door, please.
I thought I could just open it, then I moved into that direction, and then it clearly gave me an impulse to do that. It's like get it and pull it in the other direction. Is this right? Ah, no. And now I can open. Ah!
So this user here gets it particularly right, because what happened is that this is a fake door. You see that it's rigged, it has a solenoid inside, all these things. It's opening in the opposite direction of every single door, basically in Germany, with a vertical handle. So, right, this is sort of a projection of when you go to another culture or something and you find an object that just works the other way. And you've had that when you travel from the US to Europe and you see doors that you expect to be handle pulls and then they're lever pulls and so forth. So that's what Affordance++ here is doing, showing you the hidden state of the lock mechanism of the door. So what you've seen so far was actually footage from user study number 2. And I want to show you again, this is basically all the puzzles that you've solved here with me, and this was actually what the user was solving as well. Now when we asked them how much they understood the instructions for Affordance++, overall you can see that it was pretty well understood, and that was great outcome for us. But in particular, of course, certain things were harder, right? The Avocado tool over there is borderline on average 3, which means that it is a complex object, right? It already shows some of the limitations of our implementation, right? It's a spatial object, has 3 points. It is hard to like turn, approach the Avocado, suggest that you have to go to the Avocado. So all these things were harder. But if you look at the spray can right here and the second row, or the hot cup, this was a great instruction, right? Repel is a great moment, or shake is a great moment. So when we asked them how helpful these things are, we got also a great response. So from spray can, hot cup, the lamp, the kind of awkward lamp that tilts over, Avocado tool, and door handle, they were very helpful as participants found it. But the magnetic sweeper, so the kind of magnet thing to collect handles, was found to be not so helpful with Affordance++, because what they said is that after they understood there was a magnet inside, there was no more need to explain things. And you kind of see here that's what correlates. We asked them, how much do you think that the first 5 seconds you saw the object, the traditional affordance already depicted what you had to do? And they said, well, in the magnetic sweeper I kind of got it, but all the others, I was clueless. And actually 10 out of 12, something like that. Forgot to shake the spray can, and so forth. Alright, so I'm telling the story backwards because there was another user study where we looked at the first one. We looked at a bit of a more simplistic question. And this question was, well, what happens if we give them 6 identical objects? So these are not objects that have a different affordance. They actually have the affordance of a white cube, whatever that is. And what we were interested in understanding if in isolation Affordance++ can actually communicate these behaviors. And we don't tell them what behaviors are. We don't tell them the set. And we expect them to identify them. That is to name the behaviors. This is what you saw in the beginning.
Yeah, it's turning my hand.
It wants me to, I think it wants me to turn it.
It's like a turn, yeah.
Right, so you see people kind of identifying behaviors as they feel.
He doesn't want to be
I think I shouldn't have touched this.
Okay, it doesn't want to be touched. It's like the object wants to be pulled closer.
Right, so we actually had 6 different behaviors: squeeze, turn, repel, drop, shake, and raise up to your head. And users kind of went and told us what they felt, and we give them a few seconds to explore the objects, not too long, and to name the final behavior. And I'm going to show you what we consider to be a correct answer, for instance, for squeeze. Oops. Well, this video doesn't want to play.
Squeeze it.
So
Oh, no,
squeeze
to hold it more with more pressure.
these two are obviously correct answers for squeeze. Now, if they would say turn when they were, or rotate when they were referring to the actual squeeze, that would be an incorrect answer. And actually, squeeze, I'm showing you what happened, because squeeze was not as well. So this should not be 1 to 7, by the way. I apologize for that. It should be percentage of correct guesses. And squeeze was actually not doing that well. This is about 50 to 60% over there, because we sometimes want to try to squeeze. We got other muscles in the between, the surface electrodes. When you rotate your hand, things get different. And what happened is that sometimes people would turn or do other things, such as drop the object. However, things like repel, raise up, and even shake and rotate were really, really good. So people were guessing here in the blank completely. So I'm going to guide you a little bit through the particulars of our implementation using electrical muscle stimulation. We actually use the concept of proprioceptive interaction. I talked about this here at Kai yesterday, and the idea is that we use electrical muscle stimulation to drive the muscles and the nerves of the human person, right? But this time we stick an object in between. So you're manipulating this object, and you're perceiving that electrical muscle stimulation, which the object kind of triggers actions onto you through your proprioceptive system, which kind of makes the object become animated. And I'm saying animated in quotations because it's not really animated, it's you that's doing the things. That's the concept of proprioceptive interaction, right? You're doing these things. So basically the EMS setup that you see here allows us to kind of implement a different set of gestures, and this is just to show you kind of a bit like how participants' arms were wired up with about 8 to 10 sets of electrodes. Optical motion capture was what we used, and you can see here we computed the collisions in Unity 3D, and the approach vector is basically an average of the last 20 frames of the hand, and you can see here in the video kind of repelling from the teacup as it goes closer. All right, so this paper is mainly a conceptual thing that I'm talking to you about today. It's this idea of Affordance++, but we actually wanted to feasibility. Just could we actually do a mobile wearable version of this? And this is just a very simplistic one using RFID. And of course, when you approach a tag, it does one action. This tag is a repel, could be on the hot cup. And another tag, let's imagine this one is a spray can, makes you shake. And you see over there in the oscilloscope kind of what's actually going through the user's muscles. So to conclude and wrap up my talk, talking today about Affordance++, the idea of allowing objects to communicate dynamic cues, things that typically are different with traditional affordance, such as motion, multi-step processes, and hidden state of objects, by controlling the user behavior. And it's interesting that when we started, we wanted to enhance traditional affordance, but we actually, with Affordance++, got a fresher look at affordance itself, which was great. And when we started, we thought, okay, some of the qualities of the object are in the way the objects behave, so if you just animate the spray can, that's great. But to see the spray can in the table animating and jumping around is not quite the same as how the user behaves when making contact to the object. That's totally different. I grab it, and while I'm touching the spray can, then it shakes. My mind just gets it immediately. Interestingly, it can be also even before making contact with the object, which is something that we don't typically think when we kind of have the notion of affordance in mind. So I just want to acknowledge my co-authors and grateful help first, Patrik, Jonell, and Baudisch. And if you want to work with these people, just talk to us. We have slots open, and happy to questions.
I do it, and it's like
Steve Feiner, Columbia. You have a system in which the communication of the affordance is in the body of the user, not in the device. And so did people express, when during questionnaires, worries about hacking or bugs for that matter, completely innocuous bugs, causing inappropriate things?
So you saw one of the bugs in the video, which I really like, when he's trying to release the nails onto the container, and the system kind of shoves it against the container. Now, I guess people firmly understood that this was a prototype of a research question, and that sort of thing is not yet to tackle. But one thing that kind of is interesting, because you said that the user is embodying the thing, that did happen is that you see in the comments, it doesn't want to be touched. That's a perfect one. We don't really know why we were interested in this, but they attributed every single agency to the objects. Although they understood, they went through a calibration step of 10 minutes, that they were being actuated, but they kind of attributed that to the object. So as you said, the affordance was in them, but they still attributed to the external. About the hacking and so forth, I guess they just didn't went there with comments. But it's a very interesting question.
I would just worry about that hot cup of coffee suddenly
Yeah, absolutely.
getting spilled. Thank you.